Hey, replay viewers, be sure to check me out on Penguin6 YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, kind of everywhere, yeah. Right now, we're up on a mountain, up on Victoria's Peak in Hong Kong, giving you a view of the city down below on a hazy, hot and humid day. It is humid. It's not really that hot, but it is humid. I will give you that. Thanks for joining and sharing. Ohio Joe. So we got to go home now. Home is just up from this pink building, just up the hill a little bit. We're just down the mountain a bit. Hey, flames, thanks. So we're going to walk around. Try not to get eaten by mosquitoes because it is kind of rainy. It did rain last night. And make our way down the mountain. I was going to take you on a different path today because, well, I just was, but I realized I'm running late and my kid has a soccer game. Yeah, view, jealous of you. Well, you can come and visit. Not that far away. Hey, Eddie, how you doing? So let's get through these trees so you can see the skyline once again. There's another lookout just down this path. Not too far, not too short. Yeah, mosquitoes can be a pain. They're not that bad up here because we're so high up, but they do actually come out occasionally, especially when it rains. When the rain comes, it can get icky. Here we go. Been twice. Okay. That's the cool thing about Hong Kong. It changes so much. You come back, there'll be new restaurants, new bars, new buildings, new railroads, new airports. New airport runways being built. New bridge to Macau. I already had lunch. We had pizza and pan-fried buns. So we had a double lunch earlier today. You can watch my earlier scope. That was about an hour and a half ago. And then we went to go buy something, only to find out the store I wanted to buy it in didn't have enough of what I wanted to buy. April 2012. Wow, you need to get back. Yeah, we had pizza. And then we had pan-fried buns, Shanghai pan-fried buns, which were quite yummy. A little hot, though. All right, so let's go into the jungle. I live over there in those buildings over there. And we've got a hike. It's going to take that'll be about 3 or 4 minutes before we get to the next viewpoint. So you guys can just amuse yourself with the jungle. Yeah, there should be some new places. I don't know when the new runway opens. The new train station should be opening soon, and the new bridge is opening. So you can take the bridge to Macau. The cockatoos are still out. Saw a couple yesterday. They come and go. You know, you see them a couple days in a row, and then you don't see them for a week or two as they go to another area of the jungle looking for food. And the cockatoos make their ways around this area. So once they sort of ravage all the little peanuts or whatever the heck they eat, then they go to another part of the jungle and wait for more peanuts to come out. I don't know what they are. I'm trying to look on the ground to see if I see any of the little things the cockatoos like to eat. Yeah, definitely working off lunch. But it is a slow progress. Frankly, I don't think I'm going to have dinner tonight. I think if I have dinner tonight, it's going to be a salad. So the triffids are out. The triffids are a plant of extraterrestrial origin that came to life when the meteor came down and they eat people. No, they're not triffids. They just remind me of the movie Day of the Triffids, a classic 1960s science fiction horror film about space plants that go around eating everyone. Scared the bejesus out of me when I was a little kid. I was afraid to go through the jungle at night because I was afraid the trees were going to eat me. Hey, how's it going? The Great Wall is in Beijing, China. That's about a 5-hour flight from Hong Kong. 4 or 5 hours from Hong Kong. So, no Great Wall. Hang on. Stupid rock. Oh. So this is my daily hike. I've been making this hike every day for, 3 or 4 years, 5 years now. I've lost track, to be honest. About 5 years. And I need to do it a little bit more, to be honest, because I have started to put on weight a little bit. I think my body has adjusted to the hike such that I need new exercise. Okay, we're coming to the next viewpoint. From here you can actually see my house. Yeah, they're down there. Down in the mid-levels. That's where we're walking to, because the tram's out of service today. There are wild boars, there are venomous snakes. I haven't seen boar in about a month, and I don't see snakes very often. But they are out there. They have cobras, banded kraits, many banded kraits, coral snakes, cobras, Asian cobra, and king cobras. But I don't think there's any king cobras on Hong Kong Island. I think the king cobras are up in the New Territories. Bamboo pit vipers. The difference between a venomous snake and a non-venomous snake is minimal. Can't really tell them. Basically, if you see a snake, you treat it as a venomous snake. Even though mathematically it probably isn't. The way to tell the difference is sometimes so obscure that even snake handlers don't even know the difference. We also have pythons, big Burmese pythons. They are huge. They're like 3 or 4 meters long. Those suckers, well, they eat small dogs and stuff like that. We had a friend who had a small pet poodle dog that was playing in their backyard, and a python came in and snapped its back and then crushed it. And the mother had to do all she could to keep the children from looking out in the backyard as their little dog got eaten by a snake. That said, there was another woman who snake tried to grab her dog, and she fought it off with a penknife for about 15 minutes. She battled the snake, and she eventually won. They do have antidotes here, though there's a big crisis in snake antivenom around the world. That's why I walk. I don't run because I want to keep my knees in shape, and this is pretty flat here. For those who haven't followed the antivenom crisis around the world, what's been happening is that Chinese manufacturers have rolled out cheaper, less effective versions of snake venom that have basically made the more effective, pricier Western snake venoms go out of business and not become profitable anymore. So the Western companies are no longer producing the highly effective snake venom because they've been undercut around the world by this cheap, inferior Chinese snake venom, antivenom. So it's actually a public health crisis around the world. If you ever want to read an interesting series of Google articles, just type snake antivenom crisis or whatever, and you'll find this fascinating story about how market forces have pushed medicine backwards a little bit. The kind of things you read about when you're in bed playing with your iPhone. We do see big spiders. Big banana spiders. Their leg, the length tip to tip is about the length of an iPhone, which is pretty scary. They make a warning sound. No, most of the dangerous snakes are more afraid of you than you are of them. I mean, cobras will hood up, they will pounce up, like cobras do in all the movies. And most of the other snakes are just hissy, kissy. That's when they're like in defensive mode, I think. They pop up and try to scare away someone. A friend of mine was hiking, and a cobra fell out of a tree behind him. And when he turned around, it shot up into that sort of defensive posture, and he was just like, oh boy. Now, actually, the other day, I saw something new on my hike. I came across, no, they're not a delicacy. I came across a pack of wild dogs, feral dogs. There were about 4 or 5 wild pets, wild dogs, out in the mountains. And 2 of them kind of stood up to me, sort of like the alpha dogs protecting the pack. And I gave them a good amount of space. I did grab a rock. I had a rock in each of my hands in case they decided to come after me. Toyota. We don't see many police cars. We see police vans all the time, but actual police cars, few and far between. So let's go down here. I think the tram is under repair. They were replacing the cable last I checked. So we're at the peak tower. We're going to make our way down now. It's another 3,800 feet. Yeah, the tram is out of service right now. You can see the tram is out here as they're laying new cable. They've been installing new cables on this funicular. Actually, they're repairing all the seats inside. There shouldn't be. That's the old cable next to it. So the old cable's there. Hey, Birmingham. And the new cable is next to it. They do this about once a year. They replace the cable for the peak tram. It's a pretty significant amount of coin. This tram is like, 1,800 feet long. And the cable loops back and forth, so that's what? It's nearly a mile worth of, 3,000 feet of cable? 3,600 feet of cable. So it's almost, what's that? It's about a kilometer, I guess. So that's a lot of metal. That's a lot of metal. So they put this fence up for reasons I don't quite fully understand. Oh, we lost our signal. Freaking annoying. We'll just keep broadcasting and see what happens. Because it will come back. I thought they did that earlier in the year too. But I guess they didn't. So we're having signal problems right now. Signal should be coming back slowly. Yeah, I think they're cutting the cable like they did last year. I want this cable. Yep, they've been cutting it into segments. There's big segments of cable down here. Yeah, we got lost for a few seconds. That happens. So they're pulling the cable off the tracks and then they're cutting it into smaller segments for transport. And a big truck will come and pick up all these pieces. So there you can see the cable as they pull it off the track. It's almost done. And they cut it with a big saw. So this is the peak tram cable. Big pieces of it. I say I want to steal some. It's pretty cool. So they'll cut that, a big truck will come by and gather up all that cable. The next few days, take it to the recycling bin. Imagine they get a pretty penny in it. That's some serious steel. It's too freaking big. I mean, those pieces are about 100 feet long. But if they get one that's down to like a meter or so, and they did last year when they did it, they cut it into some smaller pieces. So I might come back and look a little bit later, see if there's any smaller pieces. Oh, how are we doing on time? Building a new house here. I've lived here 8 years. This is our home. Hong Kong is part of China, but culturally it's considerably different. It's actually like living in, well, any major Western city in the United States, like living in Chinatown in New York, basically. It's a very advanced city, very civilized at times, uncivilized at other times. It's a lot of fun. I strongly recommend, especially if you're a single guy, I strongly recommend living in Hong Kong. In fact, if you're a single guy and haven't lived in Hong Kong, I just don't know what's wrong with you. But living here is just like, my life here is very similar to my life in the United States. Well, the language is English. English is an official language of Hong Kong, as is Chinese. As a result, it means pretty much everything is in English. You know, you want a driver's license, fill out the form. It's in English. You want to get a plumber, speak English. You want this, it's English. It's just very, very expensive to live here, yes. Especially to live to the standards that you're used to from the West, it's going to cost you considerably more money, significantly more money than it does to live in the United States at the same standard of living. But you get some other good things. I mean, there's basically no crime. We live essentially crime-free, especially when compared to the U.S. There's basically no crime. It's a very convenient city. Come on, what? How do you live here, or what? You need a very well-paying job to live here, basically. Most people are in the finance industries. Finance industry pays extremely well, as you can imagine. Living expenses more? Well, the average family in my son's international school spends about $11,500 US a month on rent. $11,500 a month on rent. Milk runs about $14 a gallon. That's for fresh milk from the United States. If you want fresh milk from Australia, it's going to run you about $22 US a gallon. Gasoline is $8 a gallon. Box of Cheerios runs you about $10. Thing of salad dressing that costs like $3 at Walmart will run you about $8, maybe $10 here. McDonald's is the same price though. And there are a few other things that are cheap. But by and large, the cost of living here is one of the highest on the planet. It's one of the most expensive cities to live if you want to live like upper middle class Westerner. If you're willing to go local, it's quite a bit cheaper. For example, 50% of the population lives in government or subsidized public housing. I should also mention healthcare is free. Healthcare is paid for by the government. So there's two major expenses that the locals don't have to deal with. Most people do not have a car. There's only 550,000 private cars for 7.4 million people, so most people take public transit. Public transit prices are low. Taking the subway from one end of the city to the other is not that expensive. That's going pretty good. It's a little humid though. It's kind of a wet, damp day. I'm going to have to take a shower when I get home. It's not because I've been exercising, it's just because it's so darn humid. So you can hear it on the street. What about the rest of China? The rest of China varies in price. Of course, Shanghai is very expensive. Beijing, expensive. Shenzhen is getting expensive, but other parts of China are dirt cheap. Though, you know, you're not going to have as much English. You're not going to be accessing the internet. You're not going to, you know, find Cheerios in the mall or trust the food. Income tax is 16% flat rate tax, but as an American, you have to pay both taxes. Woohoo! Double taxation. So Americans have to pay USA income tax and Hong Kong income tax. Way to go, Uncle Sam. Other nationalities, though, they find it much cheaper to live in Hong Kong due to the tax savings. French, British people love to come to Hong Kong. They can save a significant amount of income. English is still an official language here. It is declining in use. I wouldn't say declining, but it's not as common. Mandarin is growing in usage. Mandarin is now used about as much as English as far as the people, but it will always have things. We trust the imported food. We don't trust food from mainland China, agricultural products from mainland China, even though we eat them a lot. We're just very nervous about them because the agricultural system in mainland China is ripe with corruption, fraud, and abuse. Nevertheless, when you go to a local restaurant, you pretty much know that food's from China. It's more of a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. But when you buy stuff in the grocery store, we prefer to buy imported stuff from, say, Australia, New Zealand, England, Brazil, Netherlands, Japan, the United States. A lot of mainland Chinese in Shenzhen, they prefer to come over the border to Hong Kong to do their grocery shopping. They feel the food inspection in Hong Kong is more secure than the food inspection in mainland China. As a result, they prefer to buy their produce here in Hong Kong. Best time to visit is usually the spring or fall. Round-trip airfare from the West Coast is $460 US. Yeah, I just tweeted a link to that, $460 US the other day. My Twitter is Penguin6. Round trip from the West Coast to the United States, but you can often find prices $600-700 from many major U.S. destinations. That's a direct flight, by the way, $460 round trip from the West Coast. That's crazy. Pixelated, yeah, it's just we've got a bandwidth issues. Bandwidth is bandwidth. Nonstop from California, yeah, it is a really cheap flight. Not sure what's holding you guys back. High quality products like first grade cost more than Japanese products. Well, Japanese products are generally considered high quality here, more high quality than, say, Chinese products. They're actually sought out. Many of the electric goods that we have are Japanese, Hitachi, Mitsubishi. Dim sum, of course, is good here. Though more and more the dim sum is being made at big factory dim sum places across the border in China rather than homemade stuff. You have to know where to go to get the local homemade stuff. Like 3 a.m. dim sum in Kennedy Town, I go there when I want homemade dim sum, not that mainland Chinese stuff. Big truck coming. I wonder if this is the truck coming. No, it's not. The truck coming to get the cables. Hong Kong for Taiwan. Actually Taiwan is pretty much the vacation choice. Predominantly because it's cheaper. It's much cheaper. And there's much better food. Hong Kong is fun and all that. It's definitely worth seeing on a vacation, but Taiwan is a cheaper vacation destination and the food is fresher. people love to go to Taiwan. A lot of Chinese like to go to Taiwan because they feel it's actually more Chinese than China. Singapore is really, really hot. It's very, very clean. It's very, very pretty, but it's very, very hot. It's very much like a planned community. It's like one giant Disney World, and it's hot. I mean, it's like in the 90s every single day, and it's very bright sun. You will get very dark very quickly. You want a tan? Go to Singapore. You have to remember, Singapore is only 1 degree above the equator. Yeah, we're 1 degree below the Tropic of Cancer. So, quite a bit of a difference. Crap. I was blocking a bot and I dropped my umbrella. Vietnam is actually very popular for foodies. The Vietnamese food hasn't changed much hasn't changed much in centuries. So a lot of people love to go to Vietnam for food tours. I think Vietnam, and that's not just Americans, but that's like people from all over the world. They consider that Vietnamese food hasn't been modified as much, hasn't been changed as much as, say, Chinese food or something. Singapore has a nice subway system, but as far as great subway systems, you'd have to come to Hong Kong. Hong Kong has probably one of the best subway systems in the world. Not only is it most efficient, quickest, it also makes a huge profit. The Hong Kong subway system makes over about $2 billion US profit per year. There are very few subway systems in the world that are profitable, but Hong Kong is. Also moves millions of people at a very low price. In fact, the Hong Kong MTR Corporation, the corporation that runs our subway, is now actually running subways around the world. I think Crossrail, which is opening in the UK, will be operated by the MTR Corporation of Hong Kong. They just have so much experience in running subways properly that they've taken their skills to other countries. Sweden has an MTR-operated line. Even China, Shenzhen, has an MTR-operated line. I am from the United States, but I've lived here now 8 years. This is my home. One day we may go back. I'll let you guys know. I'm a permanent resident of Hong Kong. It means I have the right to remain as long as I wish. DC does not have a good subway. DC had a good subway, and then they just said screw it. In fact, I read this morning that over a dozen stations, almost a half a dozen stations, are going to close for 2 months so they can rebuild parts of the DC subway. I come from Washington, D.C., but I grew up in Illinois, so kind of a farmer's kid who went to the big city before coming to the really big city. Now when I go back to DC, DC feels like a tiny little village. I hate the Beltway. I mean, after you live in Hong Kong, I'm sorry, DC is just, well, it's like a suburb. No, I didn't live in Tysons. I actually have a house. I still have a house in Maryland, but I've actually lived in all 4 quadrants of DC. Southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest. Got around the city that way. If we go back to DC, we will probably live in northwest DC. Ooh. Did the British build the Hong Kong subway? The Hong Kong subway system started under British rule, but many of the new lines have been built since the handover in 1997. And I would say the system has only gotten better over the years. I'm retired. No, I'm not retired. I do things here and there. I've been mining bitcoins lately and doing some cryptocurrency trading. Yesterday was a pretty crazy day. The market went down about 10%, but it's shot back up this morning, so I'm kind of thankful I survived that little bump. I'm long on Ethereum and long on Cardanos right now. I mine bitcoins. My buddy Nishan, who's a big crypto guy, he's long on Cardanos. He has, oh God, what did he buy? He bought like 40,000 US worth of Cardanos. I think he bought 20,000 of Cardanos. Then he doubled his money because the Cardano went up basically 100%. And then he put in another 20 grand after a spike down. So I think he probably has about 50 or 60,000 in Cardanos right now. So yeah, if you guys were watching our scope when we went to the ATM, that was about 6 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. Basically, remember that huge stack of money that he had? Well, he doubled it. He doubled that stack of money in the time since that scope. I'm not sure about Tron. I haven't really followed it much. I'm kind of watching Civic, and I'm kind of watching HT right now, which is a Chinese currency. Whee, let's go down this mountain. Hey, Meej. Where am I walking? I am on what's known as the Central Green Trail, Chatham Path. It makes its way down from Barker Road to May Road in mid-levels of Hong Kong. I don't know if Cardano will get to 100. That would be nice if it did. And you can see we are right now overlooking central Hong Kong as we make our way down. Political machinations don't really affect the economy here so much. The economy functions more on legal rather than political things. I do fly drone over here quite a bit. If you go to my YouTube channel, Penguin6, you'll see many, many drone flights from up here. We fly over all those buildings with the drone, so if you guys take a look at my YouTube channel, Penguin6, you will see my drone buzzing all these buildings. I have a DJI Mavic Pro. We fly, god darn stupid camera. And we fly that here. Actually, you guys helped buy that. Thank you for your crowdsourced GoFundMe campaign. So yeah, I haven't flown the Mavic. We've actually had not very good weather the last. I had a good day the other day, but I didn't have time to bring it out. And we'll fly it some more sometime. Mavic Pro 2, yeah, it's quite possible. I really do like the Mavic Air. It's just the Wi-Fi connectivity is a big problem here in Hong Kong, where we have literally tens of thousands of Wi-Fi signals. Every building has 100 Wi-Fis, such that congestion is there. The Chinese, actually, you have to understand the thing about China. There's 1.2 billion people, and while they are kind of strict on some things, on a lot of other stuff, they just don't have the manpower to enforce everything. Like, they can say no fireworks for Chinese New Year, and then of course you go out and everybody's blowing up stuff, and it's like the cops are like, it would take forever to arrest everyone, you know? It's kind of like a city where everybody goes speeding and the speed limit is 35, yeah? So if you've ever dealt with Chinese, communist Chinese, or even like Russians, Eastern Europeans, you find that they're very, very good at bending things to their will, you know? They're very, very good at finding a way to do something, even though their government may tell them they're not supposed to. In fact, it's caused, well, actually every sort of economic deal. When it comes to pushing the envelope of what is and is not allowed, they're extremely talented at that. And so you get away with a lot of stuff. Attitude, I mean, there are rules about drones here in Hong Kong, but everybody's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Don't you have something better to do? That's why if you ever do business with a Chinese company, you read everything in the contract. You dot every I, you cross every T. You look at every possibility for something that could go bad, because if it is there, they can use it, and they will. And that's something that a lot of Western businessmen are like, well, my handshake is my bond. We'll do a deal. My handshake is like solid oak, you know, and we trust each other. I got a good feeling about you. Oh, God, I can't tell you how many dumbass companies I've seen go in with that sort of attitude to China and just get ripped to shreds. Yeah, it is popular in India as well, and Eastern Europe. I think I read about Amazon. When Amazon opened in India, they just couldn't even keep up with people trying to hack their system. Like, Amazon Prime offered like first week free, and by the end of the day, people had found out ways to like hack the Amazon Prime free account to get free service for a month or something like that. And they were like making YouTube videos. How to hack Amazon Prime India to get free service for a month. And Amazon, like, I mean, just literally couldn't keep up. They were just like, you give these guys an inch and they'll drive a semi-tractor trailer through it. Do you ever go on runs instead of walks? No, you know, I'm kind of older and I value my knees. Occasionally on the treadmill, when I get really bored, I'll flip into an interval training and I do actually run, and then I'll walk and run. But when I'm outside here, I generally walk most of this. The other thing is I'm not really dressed for running, and this is really, really steep and wet. I mean, I've fallen on this path just walking. The idea of running down it, it's a bit scary. So I'm more of a low impact kind of guy. It's freaking humid as hell. Oh yeah, bringing in businesses, joint ventures. Now Hong Kong looks mostly north, bringing in Chinese businesses. And actually, there's a much more China focus lately than there is foreign focus. Do I have family overseas? Yes, I do. What profanity? I don't think I said anything. There's a bike. Can you bike on this trail? It would be very dangerous to bike on this trail. It's just so steep. There's blind curves everywhere. I mean, I'm sure, I think maybe once I've seen a biker. There's also steps. Several places on this trail there's steps. And it's steep as crazy. Whoa, little bird. I mean, I would not want to bike this, to be honest. There are bike trails up in the new territories. If you go to my YouTube channel, Penguin6, you can see I took my kid out for a bike ride. Yeah. Yes, nude beaches are everywhere. That was a fun Periscope. You know, I actually was going to hike that trail today. I literally was going to hike the nude beach trail. And then I was going to take this side trail today. It's actually, I don't really know where it goes, but I looked at the watch. I just didn't have the time to go exploring before I needed to get home. I have to go down to the south side at about 3 o'clock or so to meet my son. How do you get a bike to the territories? You just rent them up there. There are bike rental places everywhere. There's rental bikes everywhere. So you just take an MTR or drive up there and you just get a bike when you get there. In fact, there's bike shops that actually work in unison with each other. So you rent the bike at one bike shop, ride to another and drop it off. And of course, with all the dockless bikes, you just rent it wherever it stands and you just leave it wherever it stands. So all the dockless bike systems are everywhere in Hong Kong. Dockless rental bikes. I am in Hong Kong Island. We're at the Peak Tram. The tram's not running right now as they're replacing the cable. It's a Tesla. Teslas are very common here in Hong Kong. So we are on May Road, Mui Do, on Hong Kong Island in what's known as the mid-levels, because we're midway up the mountain, up the peak, or midway down, depending on which way you look at it. That's Clovelly Path, and here, of course, is May Road, and there's a taxi going to hit me. We just came from the peak. You can see the peak tower up there. It's about, I'm at about 400 feet, and that's about 1,200 feet, I think. So it's about, what, 600 feet vertical? It's about 100, 200 meters vertical, something like that. The Science Park, oh, on the Airport Express, okay. Yeah, Science Park is a government effort to bring businesses here. Used to do this every day. Well, you got to come back, yeah? You got to come back. Say, hubby, take me back to Hong Kong. Take me back to where I want to be. I want to walk the peak again. It's a lovely hike. So there's a lot of there's the cockatoos. You guys were asking where the cockatoos are. There's 3 of them in this tree right over here. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, you see these little white thingies? Those are sulphur-crested cockatoos. There's one there, and then there's one up there, and then there's another one you guys can't see right now. Let me zoom out, and we'll go underneath them and see if we can get closer. So the sulphur-crested cockatoos are not native to Hong Kong. They were, however, the private property of the British governor who occupied Hong Kong in 1941 when Japanese troops invaded. The British governor said, "I'll be damned if I'm going to let these Japanese troops eat my beloved birds," so he released them into the wild. And these birds today, these war refugees from World War II, continue to live in the jungle. So there you can see them up close. There's a third over there, you see him? 1, 2, 3. So there are now dozens of sulphur-crested cockatoos. Apparently these things are expensive. Go to a pet shop in the US and it runs you like $1,000 US or something like that. It's a lovely story. They are actually, however, very loud and damaging to the trees. See if I can get one up close. Oh, there he is. There he is. You see him? He's right there in the center of your screen. Yeah, he's just looking at us. Right there. Pixelated bummer. Yeah, we're back in the city. Pixel pages, time to get your picture pages, time to get your crayons and your pencils. Picture pages, open up your picture. Till Captain does another picture page with you. Yeah, I used to watch Captain Kangaroo. I didn't actually watch Captain Kangaroo, but I used to wrap newspapers because I was a newspaper delivery boy. And when you get up at like 5:30 in the morning, the only thing on to watch was like Captain Kangaroo. This is Hong Kong. You're on May Road. And that's my building up ahead, the small 38-story one. Then we got WGN, and then I got to watch Stingray and Thunderbirds. How long to do the walk? I usually do about a 90-minute walk, which is a loop around the peak, and then I walk down to my house. Sometimes I walk up to. So 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what extraneous other stuff I do. Like, do I go get a candy bar? Do I do this? Do I do that? Oh, here comes a Ferrari. Now, the number of exotic cars in Hong Kong is, well, frankly, uncountable. In the thousands as far as Ferraris, McLarens, Lamborghinis. The internet this week. How many steps do I do? About 20,000 steps a day is my goal. I don't always get there. Yesterday I was just feeling very morose. I only did 8,000 steps yesterday. Today, I think right now I'm probably at about 13,000 steps. So I do actually beat everyone in Florida. When I go up the peak and then come back down, it works out to 80 floors, 80 to 90 floors. My best day is when I did the Twins. I did like 240 floors. There's a lot of cash in this town, yeah. This town has a lot of disposable income. But anyway, it's time to run. It's time to go home. Bankers are working. I'm not a banker. The wife is. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with this exciting taxi sign. Taxi, taxi, taxi. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Hope you follow me.